So yesterday was the Aurelia Corona Breakthrough, I think it was called. I'm not exactly sure what the name of it was. I have to admit, I've only been derbying for 7 or 8 years now, and that was one of the hardest demolition derbies I've ever been to. My heat, I think, was probably one of the hardest heats there, and I came out of the heat pretty mangled. But we'll talk about this one in a bit, because as you can see, there's nothing left of this car. But we're going to move on to the next car. I'm a little slow moving today. The derby was actually 2 days ago, because yesterday I actually broke my toe at the demolition derby, the big toe on this foot. So I'm kind of limping around still, but getting by. But yesterday I was so sore. I have bruises all over me. Like I said, it was probably one of the hardest demolition derbies I've ever been in. And I needed a day to recover. I pretty much just sat down and edited most of the videos. Took it easy. But today I'm up and walking around. So let's start with this car. Now this car has been through, this will be its 6th Edge Motorsports event. And there was a couple things we had to change coming here. The bumper rule changed. So I put the flat plate with a bend on it. That had to be cut. Not a big deal. Threaded rod had to be moved forward, not a big deal. New rule about the gas tank protector. We had to cut it and shorten it and put it back in. Again, not a big deal. This one here passed tech, actually pretty good. So after the heat, we started doing a little bit of work to this thing. And we kind of straightened the front end. We put a little bit of plates back on the front end, a little bit more. And we put more water in it because this car actually didn't have a radiator. We put oil into it. Steven actually broke his seat. I don't know if you guys can see this, but the bottom of that seat is completely vertical, and then it goes on a 45. That's the problem being over 200 pounds inside these cars. Sometimes the seats just give way. So we added a couple more ratchet straps to the top of the seat to try to bring it back up. Steven did a great job. You know, this car here was pretty much near the end of its life, and it actually ran really, really well. He had a little bit of a fight in his heat, but he did okay. Feature, he ended up breaking a tie rod again and an axle, because at this show we're not allowed to reinforce tie rods. He seems to think that something is twisted in this car that just keeps spitting out axles. I'm not sure, it may be, but it's this driver's side tie rod that broke. It actually snapped halfway up, and then the axle split right here at the end. So I'm not 100% sure why this car's doing this, but if you take a look, you can clearly see how pounded in the passenger side is. This car's been through a lot of demolition derbies. I don't think it's time for it to go yet, though. Like, this could still do a couple of smaller shows. After the heat, we've seen that the roof was starting to give out. So we quickly made it so the roof was a little bit better. And then the back here was giving out. As you can see, gave out quite a bit. So we kind of pulled this back in here with this 9-wire, trying to get everything kind of pulled back. Rear sub got fed pretty good. It's actually kinked in the middle, but as you can see, everything is blowing out on this car. It did really well, though. For a car as beat up as this, I'm very, very pleased with how much time Steven actually got out of this car in the ring. After the heat, this car was actually a lot better than mine. I couldn't believe how much better shape this car was than mine after the heat. Now, mind you, there was cars that looked 100% fresh. My buddy Blair Micklejoy, his car looked amazing after his heat. Some of those LBR cars, Dylan Ham's car looked like it was showroom fresh. Josh Archibald's car looked showroom fresh. There was such a variety. You had cars coming out of the heat that looked like this, and cars that came out of the heat almost looking like that Solera over there, just beautiful. Every heat was different. Some heats were extremely hard, and I think my heat was probably one of the hardest. I went into my heat trying to drive sensible. I wanted to go to feature. I wanted to have a good car with lots of life left for the feature. And about 2 minutes into my heat, everything kind of got thrown out the window. I got track shotted, half track in the front, and I didn't think it was going to come. I thought to myself, nobody's going to ruin stock car and do track shots to the front, but boy was I mistaken. These two competitors, great guys, tough drivers, track shot me in the front. And you know what, I was going to retaliate, and I said, no, it's okay. Maybe it's just them wanting to get the first derby of the year jitters out of them, and they just wanted to have some fun. But then I just kept getting track shotted and track shotted and track shotted, and I was in defensive mode, and I tried my best to stay moving, stay alive, and then it got to the point where my hood was as tall as my header, and I was like, you know what, we're gonna start track shotting. I kind of got shoved into a driver door, and they kind of flagged it, but then they kind of seen that I was being shoved. And like I said, guys, if you don't think driver doors are going to happen to you, the driver doors are always going to happen. If you go into a ring thinking you're not going to get hit, you're going to get hit. So I did do one, and I gave thumbs up to him right away, but my heat was so unbelievable. I came out of my heat with no car left. There was none. Like, the trunk was up to here. The front end, after the heat, I spent 40 minutes trying to get out the radiator because I couldn't get at the shifter, and then I just gave up and cut it in half, and I still couldn't get it out because it was into the motor mount. The factory bumper is right here. There is the factory bumper that I came there. That's the Mazda 3. And after the track shots that I got done to me, it was garbage. Like, this is the front of my frame rail. I ended up just throwing a Corolla bumper on it, but as you can see, the frame does a 90-degree right there, so it's not even attached to the frame. It's welded to the tow hooks because there was nothing left to weld it to. I just wanted a bumper a little bit lower to try to protect my shifter. The motor mount is through the oil pan, so that shows you how bad that came into there. The shifter was hitting off the sub, and it's still hitting off the sub. I actually had to hammer that shifter tighter to the motor. See if I can see inside here. The motor is through the firewall, like right through the firewall. I don't understand. I've never junked a Camry this hard. My front window bar has a bend into it. So that's how far this motor came back. Is it bent my front window bar? That is insanely intense. I've never bent a front window bar. You can see the frame bending here. It's blowing apart. Basically, everything is messed up on the front of this. Struts are okay, only because they got pounded into the 2x2 so hard that the 2x2 is actually bending behind there. Now that's thin wall, so the frame comes down, around, up, and then back, and then down. You can see it's all kinked up back here. This car is garbage. This is pretty much how it looked after the heat, believe it or not. I threw one repair plate here. It didn't do a whole lot. I just tried to make it so it would stop bending, but it still just bent right into the sub. I didn't even bother putting a repair plate on the frame because there's no way I could straighten this thing out to make it so it was at least half decent, but there's nothing there. Yeah, so motor's through the firewall. The back of the car, after the heat, was garbage. I had to pull the frame rails back together. I actually purposely took a jack and bent the trailing arms to get the tires to be straight. All the trailing arms were cut and re-welded because they were so bent, and actually this side snapped. The floor is crazy. I was a little nervous going into the feature because the floor was almost this bad going into the feature, and I was nervous it was going to rip this damn gas tank right out of the floor. But it ended up holding pretty good. You know, enough bolts and everything will hold to the floor good. But the gas tank protector pretty much did what it needed to do. Without this, I would have not made feature without this gas tank protector. And this is pretty much the biggest gas tank protector I could have ran in his rules. And I am so glad that I was able to keep this with his rules, because without this, I seriously think I would have been injured. I've never, ever had that hard of heat before. And boy, those guys in my heat, they know how to drive. You know what? You can tell the difference between experienced drivers and unexperienced drivers, those guys knew what to do. They knew how to hit, they knew how to drive, they knew how to get to me. That was probably one of the hardest heats I had ever been in. And I am still sore, and it is 48 hours later. So after the heat, there was pretty much nothing I could do to fix this. Like, the threaded rod ripped a 4-inch section out of the frame. You can see that the strut tower is garbage. You can see that strut tower. Oh my goodness. Sorry, that frame rail is garbage. The water pump housing, I don't know if you guys can see that down there, has actually sheared off at the block. And there's no way I could put another one onto it because the bumper was right where the water pump housing should be. So I actually went in the feature dry blocking. The motor came into the frame and broke the map sensor off, so I actually had no map sensor for the feature. This car was in very, very rough shape. The only thing that kind of stayed together very well was the transmission cooler, which I'm actually very impressed past Don's rules. But because I lost my alternator, I couldn't run the transmission cooler in the feature. But if you guys pay attention, she still works. Oh, there you go. Look at that. Keeping that transmission nice and cold. But car turns over great. What actually took me out was nothing to do with driveline. Like, the axles are good, the tie rods are good. The frame came into the motor and came through the timing case and snapped the crank sensor off. So I don't really know if I can even kind of fix this thing, because it's going to need an oil pan no matter what, because that motor mount is making best friends with the crankshaft every time this thing turns over. But I'd like to see how bad the timing case is, and I'm going to have to cut so much of this car away to get at the timing case. After the heat, I didn't open the hood because I was terrified if I opened the hood, I'd never get it closed again. And realistically, the hood isn't doing a lot, but it's doing more on there than if it would if it was just on the ground. So the car still turns over good. It's just got no crank sensor, so it won't fire. But I actually seen the spark when the crank was cut, like the wires were cut. So it might be fixable, but unfortunately this car is definitely not fixable. But you know what, guys? I had a fun time in the ring with you. It's not what I was expecting. I was expecting to make it to feature and have a good car. I was expecting to have something that I could at least work with in the feature. You know, pull it a bit straighter, throw a little bit of repair plate on it. You know, that's what I was expecting. I was not expecting to go to the feature with absolutely nothing. I was not expecting to go to the feature with a butter knife and everybody else have weapons of mass destruction. But guess what? I went there, I tried my best in the feature. I didn't come last. I think I finished mid-pack, and I'm pretty happy with that. With going to the feature with a car that looked like this, I think that a lot of people are actually surprised that I pulled up to the feature line. But the only reason I was able to do that is because I had 7 hours to fix this car, and I tried my best. To get that radiator out was almost an hour. And I want to say that there were so many drivers and pit crew that came over. They called it your pods. It's where your truck was. There were so many other crews that came over and helped me. I got to say thank you to all you guys. You know what? I had a couple extra shirts. You guys came over and helped. I gave you shirts if you helped out. I really appreciate it. That's what derbying's all about. You guys came over, you helped. Even if you just came over and just wanted a photo, I took the time, got away, got a photo with you guys. Thank you everybody for coming over and helping. I would not have made it back out on the track without you. I want to do a big shout out to my wife, who actually stood there for almost 9 hours videotaping every single event at this show for you guys. I want to do a shout out to Don Turner, because, you know, he did a lot. Ralph, the guy that runs Edge Motorsports, you guys went out of your way, you put up this big event. I'd like to do a shout out to all my friends that actually helped out unbelievably. And I'd like to do a shout out to my competitors. You know, if it wasn't for the drivers that kept pushing me to build tougher and tougher cars, I'd still be a guy running Cavaliers. But you get beat enough, you start building tougher and tougher cars, and I guess I'm getting tougher and tougher competitors because I've never had to heat this hard. So big shout out to the competition. I wouldn't be this good without you guys. because you know you can't better yourself if you're not challenged. And by golly, I was challenged at this show. I have never been fed that hard and had to fight for my life inside the ring. And I didn't think I was going to win. I really didn't. I was just praying that this piece of crap car would hold together, and it really did. But thanks everybody. Couldn't have been here without you guys. Thanks for helping out. And thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow on Zach's Workshop for more derby stuff. Take care. Something else also happened really cool at this demolition derby. I was given these. So a buddy of mine, River Kuznick, I went to his off-road race and I brought a couple shirts, and he had 3 5XL shirts left. So he made them into pillows. I have these awesome throw pillows with Zach's Workshop on. Now, I wanted to put these on my couch, and I'm gonna put them on my couch. They are amazing, but I have 3, and throw pillows only come in 2. So I want to do a free giveaway to my YouTube fans, but you have to answer a skill testing question. If you made it this far in the video, congratulations. You're probably one in the 10% of people that make it this far. But if you made it this far, you answer this skill testing question, and it will prove to me that you like Zach's Workshop so much. Here's the skill testing question. I want to know if you guys know what my very first demolition derby car was. I'll give you some hints. The year was 2005. I was 17 years old, and it was in Beaton, Ontario. Those are the hints I'm going to give you. I can't find videos of it on YouTube, but if you guys can find videos of it, I'd love to see it. But you guys have to figure out what type of car I had for my very first derby car. I didn't even buy it. My dad traded a case of beer for it. I built it in his driveway. I rented a U-Haul to go there, and it caught fire 3 times. So tell me what car that was, and I'll give you guys a pillow, free shipping right to your door. Only 1 pillow is being given away because I have 3, and I want 2 throw pillows. So let me guys know down in the comments of what car you think my first derby car was. The year was 2005, Beaton, Ontario. And I'll give you a hint, but it's not going to help out. It was full size, but it was only there because of the wheelbase it had. So thanks for watching, everybody. See you guys back here tomorrow. Good luck on winning your Zach's Workshop throw pillow. And thanks for watching. If you figure out the answer, leave it down in the comments below and let me know.